We're going to be discussing the second value, which is sense of community. So by now you probably, because you've already done a practical on this, you may be understanding this to a certain extent, or you may not be understanding it to any extent. But anyway, so sense of community is one of the basic features of defining any community. So go back to unit 1 when I asked you, okay, what are the different communities that you belong, what are some of the communities you identify with, whether that's your extended family, or whether that is your classroom as a community, or whether that's a religious caste based community or regional community that you identify yourself with. But at the end of the day, whatever community you're identifying yourself with, it is this belongingness, this feeling of being interdependent on the group, and this commitment towards your whatever community that you've decided, that defines whether or not you feel a member of the community or not. What I mean is that when you define a community, sense of community is one of the most basic features of defining community as a concept. Now, in simple words, it refers to a sense of bonding amongst the members, that belongingness, a shared emotional connection, the fact that, again, like I said, that you are being influenced by the group, you're conforming to the group norms, you are in turn perhaps also affecting the group in certain ways, and finally you are the group is fulfilling certain needs of yours that as an individual you're perhaps not able to. Now, this is these three lines over here basically are just trying to tell you that sense of community is the center of some of the definitions of community and community psychology. Sense of community is also the basis for community and social action, as well as resource for social support. So for me to do any community work, now you've done empowerment programs, you've talked about health promotion programs, and you talked about other kinds of community development programs. Now you can only work on any particular community if the group members identify themselves to be to identify or to express that they experience a sense of togetherness with this particular community that you've identified. So if you are not able to working with a community wherein the members do not feel a sense of community amongst themselves is going to be extremely hard. So any community action comes from sense of community. Also, it is a huge resource for social support. It at a basic level, it means the number of people you feel connected with, number of groups that you're part of, and there is a healthy relationship that you have with a particular group. So for any individual, for any country, for any city, the members feeling a sense of responsibility, belongingness, a sense of commitment towards their fellow members, community members, is definitely considered to be an asset. Now, sense of community in research has been studied in neighborhoods, in schools and classrooms, in mutual help and support groups, in, of course, religious faith communities, at workplaces, and of course there have been researches on online communities. Now, coming to sense of community again, some more information. Sense of community is a value that balances extreme individuation. Extreme individuation can also be defined as isolation, can also be called loneliness. Now, a person who's extremely independent, highly individuated, is likely to feel less likely to feel a sense of bonding towards the regional, ethnic, religious, familial groups that he is probably part of, often leading to selfishness and indifference to others. Now, if you talk about the coronavirus times, sense of community can help us make more responsible decisions. Now, many of us initially may feel that we are not vulnerable to this illness, and majority of people experience mild symptoms, so we'll get over it. What is the big deal? Why are we creating such a hue and cry about it? But it is our sense of community towards our country, towards a fellow citizens, that make us stay at home, that even if I may not experience severe debilitating symptoms, even if this may not be lethal for me, but by moving out, by not following the government's orders, by not wearing masks, for instance, I am putting other people's lives at stake. And this is likely to happen with people who do not concern themselves with the rest of the people, the rest of the community, the rest of the world. They're selfishly just talking about their health and themselves and their own needs that need to be fulfilled. Now, sense of community helps us to focus on interdependence and relationships, because it recognizes that individuals' well-being, which is again, this is the point where we're relating it to the previous value that we talked about, that individuals' well-being depends on the group's or the community's well-being, and community's well-being, of course, also depends on individual well-being. Now, it, as you can see, sense of community, again, in its extreme form, so individuation in its extreme form can lead to selfishness and apathy and indifference towards other human beings, other citizens, other community members. But sense of community in its extreme form can actually also lead to problems of extreme conformity, extreme loyalty towards your own group members, to the extent to which you may be exploiting, hurting, persecuting, violating people who you do not identify as who you don't identify as fellow community members. So the in-group, out-group can become extremely, the difference can become extremely strong. You may be curtailing diversity outside your community. You may be threatened by diversity outside your community, or you may even be threatened by diversity inside your community, where you feel such a great, extreme, perhaps even toxic bond with your community, that you are going to squash any diverse opinion that you feel is going against the group. Okay, so sense of community can also have a very ugly form, and if you want to prevent sense of community as a value from becoming something that is toxic, then it needs to be balanced by other values such as social justice and respect for diversity, which is what we're going to be talking about in next lecture. Now, this is the definition that, according to Saracen in 1974, the perception of similarity to others. So let's take the example of your psychology department class. So there is a perception that psychology department 6th semester psychology honors students, they're similar to each other. How are you guys similar? All of you are writing 8 reports. All of you are being taught by same teachers. All of you are going to the same classroom. All of you are going to, experience the similar kind of college issues. So there is a acknowledgement and perception that these people are similar to me. There is an interdependence with others. I think interdependence with others in a classroom setting is something that you become most conscious of when you need to take a mass bunk. So you realize that all people need to be on the same boat, otherwise you cannot get what you want as an individual. So yeah, so we're very non-conscious of the fact how much how interdependent we are as a community, as a group, because again there is a bias towards individualistic approach and individualization, क्योंकि we collectivism की तरफ दिमाग नहीं जाता है. तो perception of similarity to other, we are interdependent, a willingness to maintain this interdependence by giving to or doing for others what one expects from them. So this aspect is influence. So these are these 4, you can say, subdomains of sense of community. So maintaining the interdependence. So you know that you are dependent on the group and the group is dependent on you. So everyone, let's take the example of COVID-19 again. Everyone knows that if I stay at home, then everyone else should also be staying at home. Okay, so I want to acknowledge and maintain this interdependence by doing certain things for others, which I'm expecting that they will also be doing for me. So we are influencing each other because of this interdependence that we have. The feeling that one is a part of larger, dependable and stable structure. So there is a feeling involved that I am a Hindu, I am a Muslim, I am psychology department. I'm a psychology student of Kamala Nehru College. I am a student from the Northeast. I am a South Indian. So So there are feelings attached to these identities. That there is a larger, you may call it a social construct. That all identities at the end of the day are social construct. But we believe that these constructs are real, dependable, and stable structures. So look at this over here. Now this is one of the members. This is the group, and the group has of course a symbol system which we'll talk about. The group provides emotional safety to these members. Okay, there's an investment of the member towards the group. You invest your time, your energy, your affection, your emotion. You even sometimes take risks for the group. There is a sense of belongingness that is coming from the group, that I belong to this group. There is influence. You are influencing the group and the group is influencing you, of course. And then there are boundaries. So boundaries means that this is out group, this is in group. Okay, and of course I think the larger boundary is talking about let's say Delhi, and in Delhi you have many different communities. So you can call, okay, I belong to this RWA, GKRWA for instance, and we are different from another RWA. So at the end of the day, again we may have a boundary which would be a boundary of the city. So this is the definition of sense of community, and we'll go over all the 4 domains one by one. Membership is a sense of personal investment and belonging. Now it is better to understand membership in terms of, again, the certain subdomains of membership in itself: boundaries, common symbols, emotional safety, personal investment, sense of belonging, and identification of the community. Boundaries का simple मतलब ये है कि who is going to be a member and who is a non-member, and who's going to decide that, and on what basis are we deciding that? Are the boundaries rigid that nobody can easily enter, or are the boundaries obscure, permeable, that you can become a member? So if I say that who can become a member of psychology department KNC, so you have to say, of course, you have to clear the cutoff, you have to take admission in Kamala Nehru College, you have to take admission in psychology department, and this is the way through which you can become a member of this community, if you can call it. Also, certain groups are divided through geographic boundaries. So you have, let's say you talk about South Delhi community, or you talk about, let's say, maybe even something smaller than that, like you can talk about the Shaheen Bagh community. So geographic boundaries, personal similarities. Personal similarities could be that you have a community that you recognize that you're part of because you have a shared language. You could have a shared religion, you could have shared caste, you could belong to the same similar, let's say, sexuality, let's say LGBT community. So shared goals could be that your boundaries, who becomes a member or not, depends on the goals that you have. So if you have the same shared goals, that this classroom community is here for learning, for education, and this is the common goal that all of us have, and that's how we become, of course, members of this community. So this is giving clarification about the in-group and out-group members. And so if you talk about how are the boundaries drawn for a protest group, so I'm going to take up example of protest groups again because we've done that for a practical. So how are the boundaries drawn for protest groups? So let's talk about so over here, for instance, boundaries for protest group for very simple anti-CA or pro-CA was just depending on what opinion you had with respect to this particular act that was passed by the parliament, by the government. So whether if you opposed it, you were in one community; if you were for it, you were in another community. As simple as that. So there could be many ways of through which people can divide themselves in in-group and out-group members. Next is common symbols. Common symbols can easily help people to feel part of a community, and it can also easily help others identify them as part of that community, and basically कौन है और कौन नहीं है easily पता लग जाता है. So you may have seen that many people change their social media status to a red, just a red dot, expressing solidarity with Kashmiris. The famous, of course, the rainbow, which is a symbol of the LGBT community. Then you, of course, have a lot of these religious symbols. Then there are a lot of these tattoos also. So psychology, for instance, you have this tattoo is for someone who's gone through depression and who has survived suicide attempts, so semicolon, that life has not ended, it's just a pause. And eating disorder and anxiety, so this I didn't know, this I recently learned. So these are some of the symbols that people get tattooed on themselves. Now, coming to emotional say. So, we've done boundaries, we've done common symbols, easy to understand. Now we come to emotional safety. Emotional safety. See, people. I think there is something evolutionary about it, that human beings become part of groups because we are safer in groups as animals than we are as individuals, and it does not so of course we're no longer living in jungle where we are being preyed upon, and therefore we need to kind of stick together in a herd. But even psychosocially speaking, we get a lot of safety through our family, through our neighbors, through our friends, through extended families for that matter. Or just think of it something like if you are let's say in a foreign country, and you don't know anyone over there, you don't even know the language, but let's say you happen to find someone who's a brown person who speaks your language, so suddenly you will feel very safe being with them or being around them, because you would feel that because of the fact that you belong to the same community, that he or she will be able to help you out better. So you find safety in similarity with other people who are part of your community. Now, secure relationships, sharing of feelings and concerns, mutual processes of self-disclosure and group acceptance. So how emotional safety just does not come through identification that, oh, I'm a part of this group. It comes from experiences. It comes from experiences in particular of talking about yourself, being able to talk about your vulnerabilities, your being at your weakest, or for that matter, in general, it's so I was actually going to give you an example where which is what I started thinking about. So I believe that in online trolling, so coming back to the protest, so many of us had put out certain statuses, and then there would be trolling, could be on either sides. Okay, I'm not going to take any position here, I'm going to be just discussing theoretically about the experience. So if you put out something against anti, so you'll have someone who'll be pro CA, trolling you, or if you were putting something pro, then you would have someone who would check on you if you were who was anti CA. Any which way, the whole point is that during this process, I think many people found comfort in where other people would come and support and like your comment, or say that I agree with you. So this is just happening online. It's not happening in the real world per se. But yeah, it feels good that you have friends in your friend list who are going to come and who are prevent you from being trolled or being humiliated in public. And by public I mean social media public as social media gets. So this is about the emotional safety in communities. Please remember, we are still on the first subdomain, which is membership, personal investment. if you belong to a group, if you belong to a certain community, you're going to be investing in that community. So for instance, I was I had an interaction with a diabetes group, live Instagram interaction with a diabetes group. Now some of the people thanked me and said, we're very glad that you came and you spent your time and you talked and all. I said, yeah, that's fine. It's my community, and I'm doing this for my community. I think I identify with fellow type 1 diabetics because I'm a person with type 1 diabetes. So I'm not charging them. I am not wanting anything in return. Purely, I have invested my time. I've made an effort because I identify with that community. So there are many different kinds of investment. You could be giving financial monetary help. You could be investing your time. So for instance, there were reports of how a man sold his flat for langar at Shaheen Bagh. So this is again a very huge investment. Another kind of investment is that, are you willing to take risk for the group? So risk for the group could be, let's say, again taking the protest example, that there were a lot of students who were young adults who were asked to not go on protests by their parents, but they ended up lying and not telling their parents and moving out and going for protests, and there were many such reports like that. And this is a risk that you're taking because you feel strong sense of membership towards the protest group that you're part of, and this is also a form of investment. Next is belongingness and identification. Belongingness and identification means the extent to which you embrace the identity that comes out of being a member of that particular community. There are certain groups that may be stigmatizing. So it's not that everyone who may be lesbian, gay, bisexual may feel a member of the LGBT community. They may find it stigmatizing, and therefore they may move away from and do not identify with that particular community. So in other ways, it's the pride, you can say. It's the description. So if I ask you, okay, tell me about yourself, what are some of the first things that come to your mind? I'm a psychologist, I am a teacher, I am, even if, let's say, if I say I'm actually a type 1 diabetic. So all of these are these identities that I use to introduce myself are coming from the communities that I feel belongingness to. If I do not feel belongingness to that particular community, then that would probably not be in my list of priorities of introducing myself. Influence. So we've talked about the first subdomain, which was membership. Under membership, we've discussed boundaries, who is a member, who's not a member, common symbols of identification, experiencing emotional safety, investing one's own sense of self, and sense of belonging and identification with the community. So next is influence. You have already done in social psychology group influence processes, okay, conformity, compliance, obedience, etc. So the extent to which any community influences a member and the extent to which the member in turn influences the community depends on the cohesiveness of the group. The more strongly people identify with each other, feel belonging, feel that emotional bonding, sense of bonding, the more likely and more strongly the group is going to be influencing its member. Okay. The individual influences wider group or community, and the community influences the views and action of that person. Members are more attracted to a group in which they feel influential. I think I can say a little bit more about over here. Now, if you identify yourself as a Hindu today, I belong to the Hindu community. What are some of the things that you feel are activities and behaviors that Hindus might be engaging in? So being vegetarian, is that part of Hindu identity? not eating cow, is that part of Hindu identity? Um, Worshipping multiple gods, is that part of Hindu identity? So sometimes you may find again, because if there is a very strong pressure of belonging to a particular community, you may find that the diversity, the individuality being curbed. Go back, and we said that the this is kind of balancing out extreme individuation and extreme group conformity. So influence lies somewhere in between, where healthy groups, by healthy groups I mean not extreme conformity, are if you feel a sense of, again going back to, if you feel a sense of citizenship towards your fellow community members right now, you will not be moving out of your houses, because you are being influenced by the government, by the group norms, and because you value you value the old lady who may be in your neighborhood who's vulnerable, you value a friend who has asthma, diabetes, hypertension, you value a person with low immunity, and you think about them, and therefore the group which is saying don't move out of the community that tells you don't move out of your homes right now, you will be influenced by that. Okay. Members are more attracted to a group in which they feel influential. So I am likely to become part of a community where both things, I think, over here, where I can be in a role of influencing others, and I feel very attracted to a group that has a certain sense of probably control over me, a certain sense of power over me, because these are group power processes. And influential members, those who try to dominate other people or exercise power too strongly, are often isolated, and only those the members. So you are going to, what they're saying over here is that किसी भी community में जो influential लोग होते हैं वो group के बारे में सोचते हैं over and above them, their own self. So if you have a member who's trying to dominate or bully you, then these people will be stripped out of their the influential position that has been given to them, or that they have snatched or taken by their own self. I believe that this discussion is more nuanced than this, and there's more to be said over here, because sometimes you may have a group member who may be dominating, but it may not be appearing to other people that they are dominating. So there's a lot of group dynamics, lot of the effect of a charismatic leader, the effect of a sometimes even psychopathic leaders that can make you do things like continuing to be influenced by the charismatic and psychopathic leader, in spite of the fact that they may be dominating sometimes, that they may be exercising power too strongly for the group members. Now this is something that we didn't get enough time to discuss. I tried to give this feedback in your reports also, कि influence as a domain was not significantly different in hybrid groups as compared to the online group. तो इसमें दो बातें हैं. पहली बात तो ये कि ऑनलाइन ग्रुप पे भी इंसान प्रोटेस्ट ग्रुप से उतना ही इन्फ्लुएंस होता है जितना कि that this person is in being influenced, where if he has to be or she has to be on the road. Okay, so this is one thing, and here you can give in support how online groups are the fact that there's a lot of information available online, the fact that you're part of so many WhatsApp groups, so many of your Instagram, Facebook pages, where there are a lot of people with similar minded people deciding, okay, this is how we're going to protest, this is where we'll do resistance or whatever. Now so इसका यही मतलब है कि रोड पे आने से या being offline using traditional methods, they are not more influential. Online is equally influential. Or the second thing could be that, so we are expecting that probably being in real, going out, being on the street is going to make you feel like you are in more position of power. It's going to make you feel that the group has a control over you to affect your behavior. But ये नहीं हो रहा है. You are not finding offline mode to be more influential. बहुत factors हो सकते हैं, जिसको मैंने आपको कहा था discussion में लिखो. पहले तो the heterogeneity of people protesting against CAA, against, कोई बोल रहा है कि हम सिर्फ स्टूडेंट की solidarity में खड़े हैं. Someone is saying that no, we are here for the act in itself. Someone is saying that I'm here to protect the rights of the minorities. Someone is saying I'm here for secularism. Someone is saying I'm here for the Northeast people's right for determination, and someone says I'm here for Kashmiris. तो इतना heterogeneous group हो गया है that perhaps the organization that is needed to how do I put this, the act of exercising power over the members, the act that the entire group, आपको वो जो कम्युनिटी ग्रुप है वो इतना इन्फ्लुएंस ज़्यादा नहीं कर पा रहा है जितना ऑनलाइन ग्रुप पे हो रहा है. मे बी कर पा रहा है लेकिन इतना कोई ज़्यादा नहीं. इट्स नॉट सिग्निफिकेंटली डिफरेंट. सेकेंड चीज़ ये है कि how do I as a protest member feel like I'm mattering, okay, that I have a right, I can influence the group. Most of the times 80-90% of us were just followers. आज यहाँ protest हो रही है, आज चलते हैं. उसका भी फ़ायदा अपना है, that unity has its strength and all of those things, as long as you agree with the basic principles of what is being protested against. But did anyone ask us our permission? Was anyone taking feedback from us? Was anyone asking what should be the next step? A lot of the protesters were not actively participating in the decision making processes. And therefore, whether you're on the road, whether you're online, it doesn't matter enough. There were not any regular meetings, there were not any, and most importantly, that there was no leader in an anti-CAA protest. Okay, so you can go and read this. And it says that such mass movements are the result of pent up feelings and sometimes may not even be directly connected to the protest in question. In this case too, for a section of students and youth, the CAA came as a tipping point after they have been increasingly frustrated over other issues: economic slowdown, job losses, police high-handedness, and attempts to stifle their voice by painting them as anti-national. So these were some of the underlying issues which people, and then CAA came and people had just had enough. So maybe protests are, which is what I'm realizing, perhaps, maybe my own understanding, coming out of the research work that we did, that perhaps protest was a mode of outrage, a mode of being heard, a mode of expressing anger, a mode of catharsis. And beyond that, the influence or certain needs were perhaps not very significantly being affected based on the mode of protest that you have used, online versus offline. Now, third is integration of fulfillment of needs. As you remember, again, we did not find any significant difference in the online protesters and the traditional plus online protesters. Now, what is integration and fulfillment of needs? Again, I repeat, you become part of a collective, you become part of a group because कोई फ़ायदा होता है उस चीज़ से. There is some advantage, there's some needs that you have that you cannot fulfill as an individual, and it could be an emotional safety need. You feel better in a group. The group gives you advice. The group is someone you can count on. The group has your back. The group leads to physical safety. The group can provide you emotional support, financial support. It's very basic socialization. So many of us in lockdown are missing our friends, our families, our workplaces, because they were, every single day they were being part of those groups, interacting with them on daily basis, were fulfilling our needs for socialization. And then other things, taking leadership positions, feeling purpose in life. So being part of a protest group could give me a lot of meaning that I am doing something for my country, or so you believe. Okay, so needs can be met through integration that has two aspects: shared values and exchange of resources. So your needs are fulfilled through integration, members being integrated in a common identity, and that common identity comes from shared values and exchange of resources. Shared values are those ideals that can be pursued through community involvement, and exchange of resources means that um, can Shaheen Bagh happen with one woman? Perhaps not. Shaheen Bagh involves many thousands of people who came and flocked together, sat on the road day in and day out, coldest of days that Delhi has ever experienced, against all threats of brutality, against all all everything actually. So they it's this interdependence, it is through these exchange of resources that that your individual need, with a need over here perhaps is that you are dissenting. So one need over here that protesters have is dissent and resistance, and that is coming from unity, that is coming from the collective. So इसलिए मैंने जब when you guys had written that there is no significant difference in fulfillment of needs, the first thing is, through the open-ended questionnaire you should have probably identified, and maybe even your own experiences, what are some of the needs of the protesters. ये जो बच्चे students हैं 18 साल 25 साल 24 साल 20 साल whatever, why are they going to the protest? What is the reason? Why are they protesting? What are some of the needs? I think one of the biggest needs for anti-CA protest would have been that secularism, which is again how they understand it, should be reinstated, and that, or put it more simply, that CAA should go. Okay, and why I feel that, so again it could happen, the answer is not ki online has lower fulfillment of needs than offline, or offline has more, or whatever. The answer is that whatever experience of fulfillment of needs you were having in pure online versus traditional and online groups, they are at the same level. I am not feeling more fulfilled, I'm not feeling my needs are more fulfilled in an if I'm protesting on the road versus when I'm sitting with my computer, or with my laptop, or with my phone, or whatever. So I was saying that some of the needs of the protesters. So so online and offline modes perhaps are equally experiencing their needs being fulfilled. That the same concept of influence, that equally being influenced. So I feel that I am able to make my voice heard online. I am able to put a lot of trolls down. I am able to start a online, let's say, signatory campaign. I was able to collect a lot of money, or simply put, through media, social media, WhatsApp messages, I was able to bring a lot of information to my friends and family, that didn't change, and same. So I feel very fulfilled being part of this community, even if my mode of protesting is purely online. Or what could happen was that, yes, I was expecting perhaps that I would feel more fulfilled, or my needs would be fulfilled better if I'm on the road and I frequently am engaging in traditional modes of protesting. Okay, but that didn't happen. So probably the reason is, we could also be feeling that, that online ho ya offline ho, needs are not being fulfilled. And one of the strongest needs over here was perhaps that through our protest, CA should move back, should be not accepted, but that did not happen. That the government did not change its stance. Okay, so maybe perhaps both kinds of protesters are feeling equally unfulfilled. So I cannot, unless and until I do a qualitative inquiry, I cannot comment about equally unfulfilled or equally fulfilled, because also the tests or scale does not give you high fulfillment of needs, medium fulfillment of needs, or low fulfillment of needs. I just have raw scores, and these raw scores do not differ. Okay, so these are some of the things that I was looking forward in your report. Finally, shared emotional connection. Finally, So if you are let's say if you're somewhere and the national anthem starts playing, Jan Gan Man starts playing, I feel that I get goosebumps, that I just feel so emotional when I hear my own um, national anthem. It's because of the emotional connection that I have towards being an Indian. Similarly, in a way, if I feel that a woman is being bullied online, or if I feel a woman has been unfairly treated, I feel very angry, because I feel a sense of emotional connection in general with women, in general, womanhood. Similarly, if a lot of you are going to now graduate final semester, and it's then that will hit you that how deeply connected you were to your classroom. And even till date, when I look back, I've not been friends with everyone in my class. There have been few close friends and the rest of them have been acquaintances. But even till date, if someone who was studying with me in my college does well, starts her own clinic, finishes a PhD, or gets a really nice job, I actually feel very proud, because this is my own community that is doing well. So, this is by Macmillan and Chavez. This is the definitive element for true community. It's not something that can be easily described, it is an experience that has to be felt. Okay, it is a spiritual bond to this group, to this collective. And no, the spiritual bond has nothing to do with the religious influences. Spiritual bond is this transcendental, you can say, um, or this something that just doesn't it's not a rational thing per se. It may not really be an intellectual thing. But so if you are, let's say, if you go out of India and there you find someone speaking in your language, mother tongue, could be Gujarati, Bengali, Tamil, Telugu, Hindi, and Punjabi. So suddenly you feel very connected towards these people. So there is no logical reason why you should feel that, but you do. Um, if I want to improve sense of community in people, then one of the things that I should be doing is that we should have more community experiences, such as celebrations, honors, rituals, shared stories, your again your orientation processes, farewell processes. Now nothing but programs to create sense of community in you people. Okay, so if I if you go on a trip, for instance, or if you many corporates, many organizations have this off campus बोलते हैं, क्या बोलते हैं उसे, training sessions, where they all go out of India. Someone goes to Goa, someone goes to out of country, someone depending on how rich the organization is that you're part of, how through these activities, the idea that HR is promoting is that people should feel strong sense of loyalty towards the co-workers and towards the company that they are part of. So this is about shared emotional connection. I repeat, sense of community is the value that is the definitive value of any community. But like taken to other extreme, it can lead to extreme conformity with the collective. Okay. So that's all for the lecture today. I will try and finish the other values in the other lectures.